Last night, Venezuela experienced two major earthquakes, causing massive damage throughout the country. And this got Jean and I talking because next year we are looking at Colombia and Guatemala as possible locations to go. But do they now sit on fault lines we need to be concerned about? Is the political situation in these countries something that we want to be around? These are all questions that we started to look at each other and ask, are these important? And the more we started talking to each other, the more we realized this wasn't actually a question about Colombia or Guatemala. It was how do we manage and plan this travel lifestyle in a world that is constantly changing? Most people assume full-time travelers are fearless. The reality, we don't avoid risk, we manage it. And today we're going to tell you exactly how we plan our travels to avoid and manage risk.
And the first one that comes to our minds are the environmental risks.
Yeah, we touched briefly on the earthquakes that Venezuela experienced last night, but that actually wasn't the only earthquake. Japan had one yesterday as well, which potentially could trigger a tsunami. So things like this, we do take into consideration. We don't just blindly pick a country, but sometimes the environmental risks need to be looked at. Burning season in Thailand or flooding season in southern Brazil, wildfire season in Canada. These are all things, environmental risks that need to be looked at. But honestly, if people were afraid of earthquakes, they wouldn't live in California, they wouldn't live in Chile. People are still going to live in these countries, even with the environmental risks that may be present.
The second one that we think about is political risk. And first of all, we are not going to talk about politics. We know the importance of vote, and that's actually what we try to do to educate ourselves. And we also see what is going on in the world.
But when we talk about political risk, it's more, how is that going to affect us as visitors to the country? Are the policies of that country something that can put us into danger, or is it something that we personally just disagree with? And this could be anything from the actual government in power, policies that change, visa requirements can change. All of these things we think of under political risk.
Keeping on with our list, the following one is important, money related, which is financial risks.
Yeah, things like inflation. Is the currency in danger of crashing? Are airlines going to fold? What else do we think about? Loyalty program devaluations. These are all things under our financial risk category that we take into account when we start looking at places where we want to travel to.
And last but not least, we also have health, because health, as you know, is important.
So the risks associated with getting older and healthcare. Is there accessible healthcare, the quality of the healthcare in the location that we're going to, languages spoken in the country? If something, gosh forbid, were to happen, would we be able to communicate when we were in these countries?
Yeah.
Even something as simple as prescription availability. Can we get the prescriptions that we may need just as on a day-to-day basis in a country? So that health risk, if you want to call it that, is something else that we take a look at.
And after talking about all of those risks, what people usually try to do is to eliminate, which is totally fair. But the question is, are we actually able to eliminate all of them?
Yeah, traveling the world doesn't eliminate that uncertainty. That uncertainty and these risks can be anywhere, including here in Canada, the United States, Europe. All of these other places that we call home right now inherently have some of the same risks associated to them. So traveling the world full-time is not about eliminating the risk. It's about managing and preparing for that in case it should happen.
And over the last 2 years, as we have been traveling around the world, we kind of learn, and we wanted to share with you what do you think about it and how do we actually manage those things. The first one that is important to think is diversification. We hear diversification in our investments, in our points and miles, as well as places that we wanted to visit.
Yeah, so diversification in our destinations is also quite important when we plan. So for example, next year in Colombia, that's our goal, is to be in Colombia, maybe February, March of next year. But if Colombia for some reason becomes unsafe or we want to pivot away from Colombia, we could go to Panama, we can go to Chile, we can go to Mexico. There's ample other places we can pivot to. And by keeping our destinations diverse, we can cancel our reservations. We can change our flights. That's not a problem.
If we have been following our journey, we know that we try to usually stay at least in 1 month on each location, but sometimes we have to pivot that.
Yeah, so by staying just 1 month, it doesn't lock us into a country or an area of the world. If we need to move, we can move and we can change. And the next thing we do is we just monitor the conditions. So we do watch news broadcasts from all over the world because, as we know, news broadcasts can be slightly biased and bad news sells. So we also try to look at Facebook groups of places where we're going to get how the feeling is on the ground by the people who are there. YouTube videos are also a great resource. These are people that are living the moment at that time and can give you a better sense of the true reality of what's happening.
And if for any specific reason we decide to leave the country or the city, we can do this right away. We do keep an emergency fund for those occasions, as well as a stack of points and miles that it might be the case that is going to be very, very expensive to leave the country. So we can use our points and miles to offset some of the costs that we would have.
And taking into consideration everything we just mentioned, backup plans are key to the way that we travel. And a huge part of building a backup plan is points and miles. Whether you're going to use your points and miles to stay at a luxury hotel or take a business class flight, that's all well and good. But the best part of points and miles is they are cancelable. You can usually get everything back 24 hours to 48 hours prior to your arrival, which is fantastic if something were to happen last minute. So having a plan B and a plan C is key to our travel lifestyle, and a huge way we do that is points and miles.
But what you have to take into consideration is your peace of mind. You might have to spend a little bit more, which is okay. However, being able to sleep at night knowing that you can make the changes as you want, it's definitely quite a good plan.
Yeah, always, always, always something. I think that's our biggest takeaway from this video. Always book cancelable rates. So fear versus preparation. So many people have that what if a war breaks out? What if there's an earthquake? What if the government changes? We could spend our entire lives asking ourselves, what if? But just like in my previous career in policing, we can't help you with what if, right? Yeah. So we have to deal with what we have today. We can plan B and C for the future, but don't let the what if paralyze you.
Yeah, in what if, as so many times that we heard sharing our journey to financial independence, people were saying, what if you run out of money? It's been more than 2 years and we are still here. We are still traveling, learning as we go.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty.
What if we get tired of full-time travel? Then we pivot. And I think that's the biggest lesson that anybody can have. Prepare for the worst, but live in the present. Don't let fear stop you from your dreams of full-time travel. If you guys have any other tips and tricks, leave them in the comments down below because we would love to hear your thoughts as well.